And welcome back, you fine humans. My name is Dventrix, and today we will be looking at a little bit of sibling rivalry, a little bit of Russian rivalry to be exact. Today we'll be looking at the Tier 7 medium tanks, the T43 and the Kv13. Now, both of which I would say are pretty fantastic tanks. But there's definitely one clear winner over the other one, and I have this tank compare, I have some armor inspector, and I have one game of each proving which tank I believe to be the better one of these two. So let's get started. If we go down, the first thing that we can see is that the DPM of the T43 is remarkably better than the Kv13. They use pretty much they do use the exact same gun, but the T43 is just, it has a better version of that gun, which is absolutely crazy how much better of a reload and DPM it has. They do have the exact same penetration and alpha because they carry the exact same gun. Now, the rate of fire is 13.67 for the T43, all buffed out. This is, of course, with the old equipment. It's different now, but the relativity between the two tanks is pretty much the same. And the Kv13 only has a 12.13 shot rounds per minute, which is not the best, especially when you look at the DPM. 2700 compared to 2400. That is a 300 damage per minute difference, and that can be pretty much everything when it comes to some of these close quarter combats that these tanks get into. Now, if you go down, they both have, mediocre shell velocity. Now, the weapon handling is pretty similar throughout the entire way down until you get to its gun depression and its shooting on the move. The T43 is slightly better at shooting on the move, but its gun depression is so much better than the Kv13. The T43 gets 8 degrees, while the Kv13 only gets 5. Now, if you're used to driving like one of the top tier Russian medium tanks, the 5 degrees is much more, easier to use. But at this tier, some tanks have, 12 or 15 degrees of gun depression, and the Kv13 only has 5, making this a lot harder to actually be able to use. If we continue down, the speed is pretty much the exact same throughout both tanks. They're pretty much relatively the same amount of speed. The T43 is slightly faster, though, if we take that into consideration. Now, this is when the biggest differences happen, is down into the armor and stuff. Now, the T43 has less armor by a lot, only has 75 millimeters of all-around armor, which is actually pretty good for a medium tank of this caliber, but the Kv13 just shoots it out of the water. It has 120 millimeters of frontal armor, well-angled frontal armor, and 85 millimeters of side armor. And the reason for this is the Kv13 has the exact same hull as the IS, making it extremely bouncy, extremely troll, and you can be very aggressive with low-tier tanks. So basically, the only difference between these two tanks is if you want the better gun, go with the T43, and if you want the better armor, go to the Kv13. And now let's hop into Armor Inspector to actually see how this plays out. Alright, hello and welcome to the Tank Inspector app. Now we are going to be looking at the armor of the two tanks. This first one right here is the T43, and it is being shot at by the Tiger 1 right now. Now, as you can see, you can angle up the side armor pretty effectively to make it an auto bounce ricochet zone, but the front of the tank is not very effective. 75 millimeters does not do a lot against the Tiger 1's pretty powerful gun, but if you use the gun depression, you can't get the whole armor any better, but you can get the turret armor to be pretty good, which allows this tank to go pretty well hull down. But the main feature of this tank's armor is in the side scraping ability into the side armor. And since it has so much armor in the front, on the sides, and in the back, it negates any chance of being overmatched, which is an extremely good benefit. Also, most HE shells won't be able to penetrate you, but don't rely on your armor. You have to keep on moving. You can side scrape a little bit if you want, but the main strength of this tank is in its mobility and its pretty awesome gun. Now, if we switch the tank to the Kv13, you can see that this tank has a lot better armor, a lot more ricochet zones. It still has that pretty good, awesome armor, but it has these little glimpses of well-angled armor that can bounce some pretty amazing things. And if you use its gun depression, you can get this little plate right here to be an auto bounce zone. And it just has so many auto bounce ricochet zones that if you keep on moving, keep on wiggling your tank, you can do pretty well against enemy tanks. Now, the Tiger 1 does have a pretty powerful gun, making this tank look pretty green, but I can assure you that if you go against some tier 6 tanks, they can really struggle to penetrate you. Anyways, let's hop into some gameplay. Now let's hop into some gameplay. This battle, we are playing in the T43 first on the map Oasis Palms in a Supremacy game mode. Now, in this match, it's not so much the best playing of this tank, but it really highlights some of the strengths of it, which is why I really enjoyed it. Now, I think that this tank is an absolute sexy beast, and which is why I bought the Fractured Ice camo on it. One, because this tank is really special to me. It was the first tank I ever got a Ice hero in. This is the first tank I ever got 7 kills, and ever since then, I've just loved this tank to that. So, it probably is biased my opinion a little bit. But this tank has pretty insane armor, 75mm of side armor, which means it can side scrape pretty effectively, especially at this tier. And its frontal armor is well sloped and 75mm. Which means this tank has a fair bit of armor, it's insanely fast, it's a tiny tank, and it has a great gun. Now, I tried to take a shot at this Tiger 1 here, but sadly we missed, which is not good. And now, we can see that the Tiger has a couple friends, and I am going to book it. We are going to book it out of here, because there's no way that we can take down all of these tanks, and we can use the insane pickup and the insane mobility of this tank to just pretty much get the heck out of dodge, which is what we're doing right now. Now, I'm telling this VK on our team to run because there's no way that we are going to survive this. So I'm booking it really fast, and this tank is incredible. It has insane mobility. Now, I tried to take a pot shot at that Chi 2 right there, but a little bit of lag kind of denies us from that. But if we look over here, we're going to stop, and we're going to try to take a blind shot at that Cheeto right there. We're going to keep on pushing till we get to some cover. When I noticed that the J Panzer IV over there, the Panzer Fear, is now stuck. And we are unspotted right now, which means that we can use the insane DPM of this tank to pretty much rip that tank apart. And look, we're still not spotted. This tank has better view range and better mobility than the Kv13, which allows it to do kind of this thing better, kind of the flanking supporting role. It's less of a bruiser than the Kv13. The Kv13 is especially good at bullying bottom tiers, but this tank has a little bit more finesse to it. Now, we try to take another shot at the AMX there, but sadly it misses. It does not miss. It hits, but it does not penetrate, which isn't the best. Now, I keep on pushing, and I realize that this T2 right here is still not paying attention to us, and that's what these Russian medium tanks are really good at. They're really good at taking on tanks that aren't paying attention to it. It's really good at flanking enemy tanks. So I'd recommend in both of these tanks actually to do a lot of flanking. You can use the insane DPM, and it doesn't have the best penetration, but it has great damage, and you can use the mobility and the pretty good armor of this tank to do some pretty good mobility. Some pretty good damage to tanks on their flanks. Now, I see that we have an M6 right here, an M6 friend, and now I'm just going to do what these Russian tanks do best, which is pretty much out DPM, out trade, and just bully other tanks. And this tank can do a fair bit of bullying, especially lower tiers. Now, we're just going to drive forward, and we take out that G2, and now we're going to get tracking shot into that Tiger 1. And with this tank, you can perma-track things, but sadly, he repairs it. But we get a great fire into that Tiger 1, leaving him on just 13 hit points. No! So unfortunate for us, but that is okay. That is completely fine. Now we're going to look over here, and we see that this AMX is still over here. Now we get a great shot into his lower plate, and he still cannot see us right now, and we are going to be able to finish him off without being spotted. Now this game, we went out, we tried to be aggressive, but we realized that was going to kill us, so we went back and we just played the supporting role, and that's what these medium tanks can do. We did 2,300 damage, and we came out top on experience by a long shot, which is a great battle for the T43. Now, if we get into the Kv13 battle, this battle, I would not recommend playing this playstyle regularly, but it works out for us in the end. Now, this tank right here, I think it looks pretty sexy. I think that the T43 looks better, but both these tanks look pretty fantastic. They look the business. And the Kv13, you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive than I feel than in the T43. But this thing has not as good as DPM, but it has better armor. So we can use this armor and we can angle up against higher tier opponents, which you will see in this game. We are bottom tier this time instead of top tier. and we're going to try to push up with our team, trying to, be the supporting role, because we are not top tier and we are a Russian medium tank, which are great supporters. But they're also good frontline tanks, which you will see in the end. They're good distractions, I will say that, and that's pretty much what we do this game. Now I'm pushing up here. I'm debating about going up to the mill, but I realized that our top tier tanks are not going mill, so it'd be better for us to come down and support these tanks. Now I get a little bit too aggressive since I see that the IS-3 is camping, and I'm a little bit annoyed, so I'm like, you gotta push, we gotta push, and that's what we are going to do, which oftentimes leads to the downfall of us. But we will just have to wait and see what goes on in this battle. Now I see that there's an LTTB. We get a great shot on the move right there. A very lucky shot on the move. And I see that they have 3 enemy tanks up there sniping in the back. Now we get a great shot into the AMX CDC. Now we're going to start side scraping up. And we side scrape and we bounce an AMX CDC, a tier 8 medium tank. Fantastic news for us. Now we're going to try to back up, try to angle our armor again, and I'm calling for help because I know that the AMX CDC is pushing toward us. Now I know that I can now DPM him, but then the LTTB is coming, and this is when things get a little bit hairy. I don't know what to do. I am completely stuck. I just need to keep my gun in the game. We get a great shot, a great bounce off our butt because this tank has insane angles, and now we're just going to try to DPM all these tanks out. The Blaze does this great thing. He takes out the AMX CDC when we are 1 shot away. And now we get a great bounce from the LTTB. And this tank can just bully other medium tanks. Now looking at it, I know I can take a shot from this Type 62. So I'm going to push out here, take a shot from the Type 62, and end up killing him. Now I'm just going to play very cautiously since we are 1 shot, and I'm going to try to do some damage into the back of these heavy tanks right here. Sadly, that shot on the Tiger 2 does not penetrate, but this one will, into the butt right there. Fantastic news for us, and now there's only 1 tank left. We took on 3 tanks pretty much by ourselves. We had a little bit of support from the Blaze, but we took on 3 tanks, and you can just do that in this tank, which is fantastic news. And just like that, the battle is over. That battle is probably 3 minutes long, and we were able to do insane damage. Just wait till we get to the screens. Remember, that battle was about 3 minutes long, and we were able to do 2,500 damage. Absolutely insane. Now, time for the verdict. While I do think that both of these tanks are fantastic, I would say that the T43 is the better tank. It just, you sacrifice so much to get that extra armor on the Kv13 that I think the T43 is just better for almost everyone to play. The Kv13 is better in some situations, but overall, T43, I would recommend it. Buy the T43. They're both really fun tanks, both good tanks, but the T43 is just overall the stronger tank. Anyways, my name is Dventrix. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope that you all have a great day. Bye.